Washington. What have you seen, just early look for a true freshman? How impressive has he been this year?
He looks like he's very well coached, meaning that he is obviously hasn't been sacked, and he really hasn't made many mistakes on tape. So he knows where to go with the ball based on what the coverage looks like pre-snap, what the coverage looks like post-snap. Looks like he has some really good blitz answers that he makes. He's a decisive kid and makes the throws. So, you just look at his numbers through the year. Every game he's thrown for over 200 yards, throws a nice ball. So I think it's definitely a challenge. And then he's got some skill around him at receiver some skill guys that can run, and a tight end that can get open and catch the ball. So it's definitely a challenge for us, probably one of our biggest challenges to this point, just in terms of the overall passing game, the operation of their passing game, how well he's coached by their offensive staff. So it's definitely a huge challenge.
How did you feel about your D-line on Saturday?
I think they continue to improve. Obviously, the results show that we hit the quarterback. We created more havoc and made more plays, in that regard. So from a results standpoint, you can see that we got some rewards there. I think the results came from not just the work we put in this week, but the continued work through the year and the emphasis of how to win in one-on-one pass rush, how to attack their protections, how to get off blocks, how to effectively move, how to get more population to the football. So I think that really with that, just like every position on our defense, it's all a work in progress. But I think because of the youth and the experience there, I think they'll continue to get better.
What have you seen from Dawson Merritt to, not be out there during the spring to,
Yep.
Starting and giving you some quality snaps?
I think there's a comparison, kind of how we used Vincent Shavers last year. A good, talented young player that when you put him out there, he makes some mistakes, but the mistakes are subtle, meaning like they're real more technical and you can kind of live with them because of how hard he plays. He has a way of finding the football, so he has a nose for the ball, and as a linebacker, that's really, we can get some of his keys and his reads and his drops corrected, but he gets, when you watch him play, whether he gets 13 snaps, I think he played last week, or he's played in some games anywhere from like 6 to I think 15, he's around the ball, which, and he has size, and when he hits you, he's physical. So very excited about how he's progressing. I think we'll continue to see him in at least that role and maybe a little bit more in the future. So excited about him.
Same line of questioning. What'd you like from Rex in his first start?
Yeah. So, Rex really, I don't want to compare him to Donnie, because they were similar last year in that they both, when I'm talking about Donnie Jones, not like Donnie played in the bowl game, Rex really didn't, but they started to really progress and show signs of life at the end of last year. And then for Rex, he really made a huge jump in the spring, just as far as execution and really athleticism. Like Rex is a subtle, really good athlete. He can run. He's over 200 pounds, which I've told you before. I like all our players, to be big for their position. So he's got size. And then he started to show, like, once he got like a level of confidence to him in the spring, then you started to see like some coverage and physicality. And then he kind of took another step in the fall and started to really progress at the end of training camp. We played him a little bit in each one of the games and just feel like, he's continuing to get better. And as a young player, there's a whole lot of stuff that he doesn't know, but there's also a whole lot of growth opportunity there. So we're excited how he's played, and hopefully he continues to get better in that regard.
With a game like Saturday for Deshaun, what can that do for him, a veteran?
Well, I think anytime you have that level of production, I was joking with him yesterday. Was he named the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week for essentially catching two of the easiest picks I've ever seen in college football history. But really it comes down to putting yourself in position, though. So we talk to our guys like there's a difference between man and zone. Like in man, your job is to make sure they don't catch it. In zone, it's to play with vision on the quarterback and melt your eyes to where you think the ball's going so you can make some plays on the ball. And he did exactly that. Like he did the work to put himself in position. Then all he has to do is catch those two. But then on top of it, I thought it was his most physical game. He was Deshaun's is innately a physical guy, but he was running around, being physical in the run game, being a guy that was capping off hits, which we got to continue to do more. Meaning, like, just because somebody's tackling a guy, like, don't let him go down to the ground easy. We want guys finishing off hits and, being right on the edge of, we're not trying to be get penalties, but you got to be on that edge. And I thought Deshaun did a good job of that yesterday. So anytime you have success, it should build confidence, but it also that means nothing unless you put the work in this week. So hopefully he'll continue in that regard, or at least maybe inspire others to make more plays on the ball too.
You and Sierra kind of showed up last 2 summers ago at the same time. Can you talk about your relationship with Sierra and how that's grown?
Yeah. It has grown because we come from two totally opposite ends of the country. I'm an East Coast guy to the core, and Sierra is a West Coast guy to the core. Not to generalize people, but I think speaking on my behalf, I am as East Coast as you can get. But he loves football, and he's smart, and he cares. And so those conversations throughout the year, and you can mess with him and coach him hard, and he's not going to take it personal. He's not going to shrink from intense coaching. And so I think that's where it starts, and then the relationship grows because there's a level of trust. I think that, I've been doing this for a long time, and really this is the only thing I've ever done. So I better know how to coach, and I better know what to do and how to coach DBs. And I think they trust me in that regard, and obviously the defense has trusted me in coaching the defense. But then you just got to keep pouring into them, and then the more that the more production, the more trust they build in us, then guys like Sierra can come to me and talk to me about things he sees, and I'll listen to him, maybe more so than I would a freshman or a sophomore that hasn't, been in the fray. And then when he does say stuff, and the questions that he's asking are the questions that I'm used to getting asked from coaching so long in the NFL. Like, he's got a pro football player's mindset in terms of how he sees the game, kind of how he's starting to see how we may be attacked. I think he's also starting to appreciate, how we've been coaching him, like in man coverage and in zone coverage and those things. Like, the stuff that we're coaching him is working. So that obviously is a big part of developing a relationship too. If you're coaching a guy to do something, and then he's starting to show signs that stuff is working, then that's the cycle, kind of like as you were mentioning, that leads into the level of whether it's coverage production or tackling or sacking the quarterback or taking the ball away. That's when a relationship truly grows, is when you realize both sides are contributing. And I think that's kind of maybe how it's grown. That was a long-winded answer. I apologize, but I don't mind talking about players that have really sacrificed for us, and I love players like that.
You excited to be on the road for the first time as a defense and see how this group plays in a true road setting?
Yeah. I think it's going to be a great challenge for us. I went to school in that area. I went to Catholic U in D.C., which is like 10 minutes from College Park. So it'll be good to get back in that area of the country. But it's a business trip, right? And we're going out there. When we're going out there, we're going to practice our ass off over the next couple of days, and then finish our preparation, in the College Park, I guess Bethesda areas, wherever we're going. But yeah, it's exciting to get on the road because you really test yourself in the mettle of your defense. You got to be able to. I've always believed that when you go on the road, you better pack your defense because that's just what you have to do. So excited about the challenge, and wherever it is, whether it's in College Park or State College or where we're going to Minnesota the next week, you got to be ready to play.
Even though he's an older guy, have you seen Judy building confidence? Like, that was his first career sack just the last few weeks.
Yeah, I felt like he got kind of cheated of a sack last week against Michigan. He hit the quarterback right before the quarterback kind of fell forward, and then caused the fumble. So I think, maybe the parallel there is Deshaun. You start to see you're starting to reap some of the rewards of all your hard work, and Judy has that ability in him. He has that in him. That's not a surprise to me. He's done that at times throughout his career. Even last year, he would flash at times. So I've talked to him about that, and in order for us to continue to grow as a defense, I'm not waiting for other people to come along. I mean, I'm waiting for him to keep going. So, those types of plays, the impact that hit had on that quarterback, I'm sure, was substantial outside of just the sack, because it was a very physical sack. Took the quarterback out of the game for a couple plays, but those are the types of plays. That's the identity that we want our defensive line to have.
What did you see from the tackling on Saturday in terms of closing down the space?
Yeah, I think it's still getting better. There's a lot of good athletes, in college football, and it's. I just still think, from a fundamental standpoint, we'll continue to work on it. We just got to keep getting more guys to them. When you look at how the quarterback got away from us, really that's the next step for us. The week before, we had, Cade Petchak was unblocked, through schematic, got to the quarterback in the end zone. Should have been a safety, and he escaped for a 5-yard gain. And then last week, we had We had McCullough unblocked at the quarterback on a pressure, which should have gotten us off the field. So we just have to do a better job of like, and then when that guy misses, when he's unblocked to make a play, we have to get more people there. Like we have to get more population around that quarterback. And at times we did, and when we did, we got him down. And at times we didn't, and that's what we just got to keep working on.
Beyond their quarterback, what other challenges does Maryland's offense pose?
I think they're a balanced offense. You know, their statistics passing game wise are better than run game wise, but we always have to pay attention to their run game. I think that their passing game is not just drop back oriented. They're good in the play action game. They're good in the RPO game, and then they really have three, but really two main guys. They're averaging over 17 yards a catch. So when you have that, you better make sure that you're in position, that you're challenging them, that you've got, population around their routes. And so I think that, it's a combination of their scheme, which I think their staff does a good job of, the quarterback who really knows where to go with the ball. And then, they like to get the ball into those receivers' hands and that tight end's hands and give them a chance to run. So, whether we're playing man or we're playing zone, we've got to do a good job. I don't get a Sorsby update this week or what? You gave me one last week. How did he do that? How did he do last week? They won again?
United States.
Yeah, no, I knew that. I was just joking with you. But
Yeah, all of them.
he's doing well. Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.